We're back on the Stefs Rock Show, and I have an awesome guest that I have been working hard to get, and I finally got him, Paul Marshall of the morning show at 98 Rock. Thanks for coming by.
Thank you for having me. I just heard a dog. What kind of dog?
He is an Australian Shepherd mix.
So a pit bull.
Yeah, he got excited when he heard you were coming by. So I got to hang out with you at Aftershock, which was really fun. And I had a blast, kind of getting to know you. I know we were both really busy running around interviews, getting to know Sac again. You've been at 98 Rock in Sacramento before. This isn't your first rodeo. Tell me about how you got started in radio and the beginning of you.
All right. So I won my first concert tickets when I was 9 years old. You see Beatlemania, which was, you're not old enough to remember this, but I am. I was just a kid. But in the 1970s, there was a group of guys that dressed up like the Beatles. It was like one of the first tribute show deals. And believe it or not, Aldo Nova, he of fantasy fame, was George Harrison in the original production of Beatlemania. So I won tickets from a guy named Dale Dorman, who's no longer with us, on WRKO in Boston, where I grew up. 9 years old, won these tickets on the radio. I don't know why they gave them to me, because you don't put a 9-year-old on the radio. But as it turns out, my father made my older brother take me. So we went to saw Beatlemania, and it was at a place called the Colonial Theater in Boston. I came outside, and across from the Colonial Theater in Boston Common was the big bunny from the Playboy Club. And that was like my first experience, was rock and roll in Playboy magazine.
I love both of those.
Yes,
Those are,
yeah.
both
And
up my alley.
Long story, unnecessarily longer. I ended up going to college to play football and saw the campus radio station. Said, what goes on up there? They said, that's where all the weird kids hang out. Hello, that's where I want to be. I spent more time in the campus radio station than I ever did in class, and I was thrown out of Framingham State College in Boston twice.
Twice?
So, twice, yeah. Because I would wake up around the crack of noon and then blow off all my morning classes, go to the college center, hang out with all my friends when they get out of their morning classes, go to lunch, then go back up to the radio station and hang out there until they shut the transmitter off at 2:00 in the morning. And as a result, you end up on something called academic probation, which means that you can't screw up again. And of course, I screwed up again, so then I got academically suspended, took night classes so that I could get back into school, lather, rinse, repeat, and I got thrown out the second time for that. Hurt my back.
I did college radio. I was on thin ice because I got caught with underage drinking kegs and stuff, but I ended up just being on probation and I could finish out my degree. So, wait, you went to play football in college and you threw your back out?
I threw my back out after I got thrown out of college. I was in a band, did the band thing like everyone else, and hurt my back working as a warehouse monkey unloading trucks, because that's what you do when you're in a band. You take a shit day job to try and make ends meet. And I did that and hurt my back. And at the time I was dating a girl, and she said, well, what else do you do? I said, I can do radio. And she said, well, then go do radio. So I went and enrolled in one of those broadcasting schools, because I had already been thrown out of a real school, and walked into the local classic rock radio station in Boston, WZLX, and walked up to the assistant program director and said, what do I need to do to get a job here? And he said, well, what school do you go to? I said, hang on. And I went back and got all my loan paperwork done, enrolled in this broadcasting school, walked back in and said, now what? And they said, well, we don't really have any place for you except for interning with the morning show, but you're going to have to get up at, 3:30, 4:00 in the morning and get coffee for comedians and all that shit. And I did. And I worked with somebody named Annalisa, who used to work down in the Bay Area at KFOG for so many years. She was my radio mom, gave me my first break when she had an interview scheduled. And the interview subject was a guy named James Doohan, who was Scotty on Star Trek. You remember Star Trek?
Yeah.
And she didn't know anything about him. So Scotty comes into the studio. She says, ask him some stupid questions. So I asked him things like, where were the bathrooms on the Enterprise? What kind of batteries do phasers take? Shit like that. Like 20 seconds of just unleashing hell upon him of goofy answers. And the program gave me a job.
I love it. My radio dad was Nick Monroe. So I had a fucked up dad, but I love him today.
Yeah, he's bald, fat, and Australian.
That's my type. I dig it.
Yeah, I like Nick. Say hello to him next time you speak to him.
I will. I did. Well, I sent you a fun video that he sent me the other day, and he's like, share it with everyone. And I was like, okay. I love his unapologetic, this is me kind of lifestyle. So you didn't blow your back out doing 15 hookers and blow. It was how did just moving heavy things?
When you work as a warehouse monkey, you have to move heavy furniture. I was up on a what they call It's a picker, but it's a forklift that has multiple levels. So I was probably 30, 35 feet in the air with a harness attached to me, reaching out like this to grab like a bookcase, and felt something in my back go. And
Oh,
it's called a bulging disc.
that's fun.
And so
I
when you're 6'1" and 230 pounds of testicular firepower and you can't lift a desk anymore, you got to find another way to make a living that doesn't tax your body.
Yeah. Hey, it happened to Luigi, and he got denied for his back pain. So, hopefully you're not as upset with healthcare insurance in America, because there's been a lot of issues with that lately.
Yeah. But he's sexy as, right?
He is sexy. I love all the memes. I love everyone being like, "I wanna bail him out." And he's gonna be broke now with no job behind bars. That's my type. So I
I'm
definitely
not,
get
yeah,
it.
that's your type.
Mhm.
I'm not
Yeah.
crying for him. Fuck that guy.
No, I don't condone violence, and I think it's really weak to go and shoot someone from behind. I'm totally against that for sure.
Wow,
But
that is a brave stance to take.
yeah, I mean, I like to get shot from behind, but not with a gun. So when did you start at 98 Rock? When did you first begin there?
First time,
Yeah.
2000 or 2001, somewhere around there. I had known the old operations manager through. I mean, radio's a small business, as you know. You cross paths with a lot of different people. I had known the old operations manager just parenthetically, and just sent him a Happy New Year note. At the time, I was doing mornings in Columbus, Ohio, and he said, "Hey, I have a potential afternoon opening. Our afternoon person, Kylie Brooks, is leaving. Would you be interested in the position?" And I said, "Hell yeah, I want to get the hell out of Columbus, Ohio." And
Yeah.
so and he sent me a questionnaire. Like they didn't fly me in for the interview. He sent me a questionnaire, like a 15 questionnaire, and I sent him back like 9 pages of
Well,
responses.
this is 2000. There wasn't Zoom links. You weren't jumping on these calls, right? But that
No,
is kind of strange that it's not an in-person, because you're such a personality when you're on radio and you're just
right.
writing and filling in a questionnaire. And he was like, yeah.
I gave him 9 pages of answers to this questionnaire, and then they checked references, and they told me when I got hired the first time, he had said to me, "Look, we checked about 30 people for references on you. 29 of them gave you a stellar reference. One gave you a shit reference. That's why we hired you."
I
They
like
figured
that. Okay. It was
they,
honest.
they said if this person, and they all remain nameless because radio is a small business, but
Yeah.
if this guy thinks you suck, we want you. Like that's
Oh,
because
I say you make it if somebody doesn't like you. There's somebody that's been in the business for years in LA and they don't like me, and there's no reason, like we haven't had any conflicts, but I go, the fact that this person knows me and I respect them and I think they're so well known and they don't like me, I'll take it. It's a compliment. I think it's cool,
this is a
you know.
small industry full of insecure narcissists.
Yes. Oh my God. That is me in a nutshell. I'm like, I love myself one day. The next I'm like, I'm not a big fan. And then I'm like, fuck it, I'm going to post it. I don't care. A little bit unstable, but all over the board. And it makes for good interviews when you just are balls to the wall, a little bit crazy and all over the place.
Well, you got to be honest, and I think that people can see through a fake pretty quickly. Like
A
if
hundred
you
percent.
if you're a fake, if you're a phony, if you're one thing on the radio and another thing when they meet you in a bar, that's not going to work. This is a politics business. I know I hate politics, but I'm in the please love me business. This is the every time you meet somebody, like for going out to a remote. If let's say you're out, and for those that don't know what a remote is, that's when you do a weekend 2 hours at like some Harley Davidson dealership. And when you go out to a remote and somebody walks up to you and they go, "Hey man, I got a Sportster. It's just a Sportster." You get up from behind the table and you give them 5 minutes at their Sportster and tell them how cool that motorcycle is, and you've got them for the rest of your life. Give them 5 minutes and you can have them forever. Just give some
Yeah.
people all people want is to be heard.
I miss about radio. The longest was Rock 96.7 in Modesto for me. And having those local listeners and doing those local pop ups and getting to know they've heard me for years and they know my lifestyle or life complete story when I meet them. I miss that. The podcast is a little different. I'll answer all the emails, I answer all the DMs to kind of try to build that connection that I can't in person over the internet, at least, of like, I'm listening to you. I love it when people call the hotline, even if they're like, hey, I didn't like that interview, I'm like, oh, cool. You gave me feedback and told me what you think. So definitely the listeners are huge. I think radio is still going strong too. I know there's been mixed reviews and a lot's been going on recently. We're going to have Dog and Joe on soon. I know a lot of my good buddies have kind of been dropped, but I think it's still going strong. There is a lot of, people that still want to advertise and do commercials and have that connection locally. I think that's important to keep that and that it doesn't go away.
Well, it's interesting that people like to lament the death of broadcast radio, yet everybody and their brother, no offense intended, has a podcast.
No,
And
totally. And
podcasting is
I
not
only started the
broadcasting.
podcast because I couldn't get back in radio. I like for 8, 9 months, I hit everybody up. I said, is there a slot nearby? I can't leave because I got the kids. There's a ton of spots in North Dakota. I don't know why that are like, let's go now. And I'm like, I'm not going out and I can't. But there's nothing here. So I was like, I did not want to start a podcast for 4 years. And finally, I'm loving it now. I talk so much shit on podcasts and another white guy with a podcast. There's literally a song about that. But for my mental health, I love it. And then the fact that I'm able to reach back out to bands that I haven't talked to for years and just talk to them on my own time. But I think radio is way cooler and way, just better. It's a better choice than a podcast, but it's like it's a redheaded stepchild version of morning radio is to do like a morning podcast with my little boys.
Yeah, look, podcasting is not broadcasting. It's a different animal, and you have to be a different kind of entertainer to do it. With the way radio is measured and rated and analyzed and monetized, I don't concern myself with most of that. I mean, I've been involved in programming radio stations for the better part of 20 years, but I can't concern myself with that because the average person listening to the radio doesn't give a shit. They don't care
Yes.
about the radio. I'll give you some radio inside terms, things like quarter-hour maintenance and rotations and song chart positions. They don't care. People that are turning on, if they turn the radio on, first of all, they've made a conscious choice to pick what you do. You'd better respect that and deliver on that. Don't talk down to them. Don't treat them like they're idiots because they're not. They are the currency. The listener is the currency, not the advertisers, not the commercials. The listener is the currency. That's the value. He who gets the most wins. That's the Gene Simmons
Yeah.
mentality. He who gets the most wins.
Yeah.
And so that's what I concern myself with is try to be entertaining, try to be real, try to be honest. Don't bullshit people. And they'll listen. People still, 96% of America still listens to radio every week.
I listen to radio all the time, like I'm driving the kids to school, I'm picking them up. I love listening to 98 Rock. I started the podcast to get laid. That was my main focus. So,
How's it
it
working out
wasn't a
for you?
numbers game. It's working out great. It's better than I thought. So I'm not like comparing myself, like I said, to like a numbers chart or where I'm at on Spotify. I'm like, how many flights am I getting to get laid? And that has been really good numbers. So there's no complaints.
Yeah, as long as you're happy and safe, do your thing.
Oh man, both ish. Sometimes unhappy and safe,
Both ish.
Ish. We'll say that.
Ish.
So, okay, when did you leave 98 Rock? And then I know you just came from Arizona because I reached out to you and I heard they announced on 98 Rock you were coming in. When did you kind of leave and then why? And then how did you come back?
So I've worked for the company that owns 98 Rock in several different cities. It was a company originally called Entercom, and they bought CBS Radio. And so we've become the second largest broadcasting company in the game, only exceeded by one other company. And those guys are just cutting people left and right and just putting people on the unemployment line. Usually every November or so, right about 6 weeks before Christmas, they lay a bunch of people off. This company went through some bankruptcy issues over the past couple of years, but overall, it's been a very strong broadcasting company with some of the best rock stations in the game. And in 2004, my contract was up here. And I had every intention of re-signing and staying here, but the company reached out to me for one of our bigger properties in Boston, that the afternoon guy that was on in Boston was not resonating well in that city. It's a very parochial city. There are some places you can go to, like California is very welcoming. Like if you're not from here, everybody's pretty cool about it. But in Boston, if you're not from there, they smell you out and they don't like you. They immediately dislike you. So that guy was not doing well, and his contract was up. And they said, would you like to go and do afternoons at our radio station in Boston, which, by the way, is not there anymore. They sold it to the K-Love or whatever the religious broadcasting company was. But back then they said, do you want to go back? And I said, no, I love it here. I love Northern California. 98 Rock, for those people that don't know, is one of the most important rock stations in America. So, and it's in Little Sacramento, capital of the 5th largest economy on the planet.
I love Sacktown.
And we're essentially a San Francisco suburb now, because of the only place between here and San Francisco that there are no people is like Dixon. Like other than that, like it's pretty full. Like when you leave Sacramento to head down toward the Bay Area, I mean, it's all filled in, and our signal comes in down to the Benicia Bridge. So you can hear us in parts of the East Bay. So it's a big radio station, and I didn't really want to leave, but my marriage was not doing well at the time, and I had an opportunity to bring my ex-wife back home to be with her parents, and so I took the
Convenient.
opportunity.
Well, you've had a couple marriages too like me, huh? How
Just
many?
one, just one so far,
I've had 2. Okay.
just one so far, but maybe I'm working on the second one. Who knows?
I'm looking for my 3rd ex-husband. I'm still,
Well,
I
well,
got a
it's the three
couple.
strikes law.
Yeah? And then wait, should I not after 3 strikes if I get a 3rd divorce?
You should consider women.
I've done a lot of women.
Oh, good
The
for you.
women are crazy. I don't know how men do it, to be
You don't
honest.
say.
Like yeah, like I was like 2 for 2 years I came out as gay. I told everybody, got hardcore. And then like 2 years later I was like, I'm gonna do both. I don't know what I was thinking. And now like I've had enough women try to break in my apartment, slash my tires that I am all into men. Like I can't handle how insane chicks are. I don't know. But it was
The
fun.
women, the women thing is great, but eventually you're going to need something that I have.
Yes, and then you can't reproduce the real thing. And my I'm not a toy person, not that I haven't tried it all. Kudos if you guys enjoy it, but flesh, it's the energy, it's the feeling. It's a million times better than something that's fake and rubber. I'm just not
Not
I'm not
having
into
experienced those things, I can't speak to their
not in the butt. I wore my I Love Pegging Men shirt too at Aftershock one day, and I wore my leg rest. I know you had what, the black hole. We had a lot of fun shirts during Aftershock this year. So wait, okay, so you wanted to drop the ex-wife off at Boston. It's interesting you're from there because I'm from Sac and I actually missed it and I couldn't wait to leave LA and come back here. But you didn't want to stay in Boston. You eventually wanted to come back to Sacramento.
I was fired 18 months later because, as is often the case, when you not unlike when you get a head coach in football or basketball or whatever, they want their own people. And
Mm-hmm.
so I got fired about 18 months after getting back to Boston because they had a change in management, which is often the case. Management comes in and for whatever reason, they want to put their own stamp on a radio station. So I got fired and replaced by a woman that was a good friend of mine. But the program director wanted a woman, an afternoon drive. So I went to the executive vice president of the company and said, "Why are you firing me? My ratings are good. I do well
Yeah.
with clients and stuff." And he said, "You're a morning guy or an afternoon guy, and we don't have that job available for you." So an hour and a half later, I went across the street to their direct competitor, and I was on the air an hour and a half later after being fired, sitting in with their afternoon guy before they had put out the press release that I got fired. And we had fun making fun of that radio station for a while. But long story short, there was no place for me there because CBS Radio at the time was going through the Howard Stern, Opie and Anthony nonsense, not figuring out what they were going to do when Howard Stern left to go do satellite radio. So I ended up being rehired by this company, the company that had just fired me, to go work afternoons in Kansas City. So I did Kansas City afternoons in Kansas City for 5 years. Pissed off that morning guy and was fired.
Oh.
Yeah, it's
Did
this
not
this industry.
vibe, just wasn't vibing.
It was fine. Everything was great. But after 5 years, there's every relationship, I think, ebbs and flows. And it's my understanding that, there can be only one cock in the schoolyard.
Do you
And
ever have it's funny, people thought that there was a fake tension between me and one of the guys. So I was with Bueller, Brent, and Steph in the morning, and me and Bueller got along great, but Brent didn't like me. When I walked in, it had been Bueller and Brent for like 3 years, and he was like threat and thought I was going to take the second spot, but I didn't want it. I loved being the quirky little third spot with not a lot of responsibility and just giggling. So he just hated me, and people thought it was a joke on air, but we would go off air and he would still hate me and talk shit on me and just like did not like me. And I would try for years, but he just, how some people, we both have big personalities, and I think he's more of like girls lay down, and I'm more like with the Savoys in the cigar lounge. And so I just don't think we did not mesh at all. And that's hard when you're working together and you don't have some kind of relationship, something in common, or some respect for each other.
mm-hmm. No, that's a very common thing. I mean, look, chemistry can't be created. You either have it or you don't. There
Yeah.
can be professional chemistry because my ex-partner, the person that I worked the last 15 years with, 9 years in mornings with, he and I were not friends at all. We didn't dislike each other, but we had two separate lives. The only time we came together was when we were on the air, and it worked really well. We had a good professional relationship, but you spend so much time in the radio studio with people, and if you're in with people you don't like or you're threatened by, or it just becomes miserable. The anxiety becomes a bitch. You just don't want to do that, which is partially why primarily I work by myself. Because if I'm the question I always ask myself when I'm sitting across from somebody, if we're going to put together an ensemble show is, do I trust this person that I'm sitting across from with the rest of my career?
Oh,
Like,
that's
do I
huge.
trust? That's the big question. Do you
Yeah,
trust your career to this person? Because if the answer is anything but absolutely, I trust this person, then you shouldn't do it because you're reliant
that's a
upon,
good
especially
point.
the way this industry is set up, you're reliant upon other people's assessment of your product.
Yeah.
And if you guys aren't united inside the four walls of the studio, eventually it's gonna fail. It's toxic, and you can't fight it.
Even if it's not your frame of mind too, when you're on a show together and somebody states something, your name is then roped in to that way of thinking, which now, I mean, also too, people are, it's a lot scarier what you say. I left in 2015. So it was just not as judgmental, very laid back. And I've always been in California. So it's like a open-minded state, but nowadays I think you have to be a lot more. I will say the freedom on the podcast, the fact that I can cuss and say things. I don't ever like to get super political or super into anything like that, but I love that I can just say some outlandish sexual thing and I'm not worried about an FCC, fine coming in or something like that. That's new. I was so scared. I remember just being like, but, and trying to say everything like my kids were in the room when I was on air. And now it's almost, I got weirder to do the opposite. When I started the podcast, I wasn't cussing for a while. And I think it took me a couple months to do an F bomb because I was like, oh, I do this. This is cool. This is weird.
I swear a ton in my regular because I grew up in Boston, and that's just another
Oh,
adjective.
yeah.
So swearing is just another adjective, but I don't do it when the mic light is on for whatever reason. There's some sort of I mean, I did it here with you. I think I said shit or something like that, but you don't.
But you knew you're on a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like,
and the other side of this is if it's natural, like that was one of the other things. There was somebody, and I'm not going to name names, but there was somebody that was on cable television years ago, and they were a host of a music show. I think it was in Canada, and they seemed to feel like saying the F word was like if you could say like you're in a podcast now, you're not encumbered by FCC rules. You can say fuck. Now you've said fuck. What else do you got?
right.
If
Yeah.
if that's all you have nothing. There's a reason why Sam Kinison was a genius and Andrew Dice Clay was a flash in the pan.
Yeah. You're not a big
Once
Andrew.
one no, I loved Andrew. I think he's a fantastic drummer and I think
Yeah.
he's super talented, but he relied upon this one trick that was just shock value. And if shock value is all you have, you've got nothing. It's why
That's a
Marilyn
great
Manson
point.
doesn't matter anymore. Because if
Everyone was
all
just
you
at
have
his birthday though. I don't know. It was a big birthday right before the LA fires.
I understand that, but when's the last time Marilyn Manson had a hit record or a
Yeah.
sold out tour or anything like that? Like your Limp Bizkit, like there's certain bands. Now Limp Bizkit is opening for Metallica again, just like they were 25 years ago. My point is, if all you have is the ability to shock and move the needle, then what else do you have? Like there are so many actors and actresses that I want to hate because they're so damn good looking. And then you hear them speak and you go, oh, that's awesome. And then there are other actors who I think are incredibly good looking and might be vapid or empty. And I hear them on an interview and I go, Jesus Christ, that person's amazing. And you get
Yeah.
these, but then you look at who are the biggest comedians on the planet right now? Nate Bargatze? That guy works clean and he's selling
I
out arenas.
I mean, I love Weird Al, and he's never cussed or said a cuss word in his life. He's one of my faves. I need substance. I need intelligence. Like, I know you've probably interviewed a band and you've been a fan, and then when you sat down with them, they were maybe rude or short or didn't answer the questions as detailed as you'd like. And so I know I've backed off on then, oh man, I'm not as big a fan of their music when I don't think there's deep substance or they're maybe just not even respectful of the little 20 minutes that I'm getting with them, like showing up late or, refusing to answer a question. But do you have a favorite band that you've interviewed or like just a favorite story from any radio interview or party that you've done that stands out?
Seven Dust.
Okay. I
Seven
like that.
Dust are the nicest guys and should be massive stars, and they're not because they were on a bad record label to begin with that had limited distribution. They had bad management. They've made some bad decisions, but there's a band that has written fantastic songs, that has worked their asses off, that have been in the studios here at 98 Rock with me and a bunch of radio stations around America. They are the nicest guys, hardworking guys, couldn't be more humble and pleasant to be around. And it sucks that they're not headlining stadiums.
I completely agree, and then I understand with what you say. I haven't got to interview Seven Dust, I would love to, but there is so many bands that we've known throughout I've 20 years, you've probably done 30, 40 years that I'm like, "Why aren't they bigger? Why aren't they headlining?" Because they're so talented and they're so serious about their career, and then there's some bands that are really kinda late, like I said, and groggy, and that I'm like, "Ooh, they don't sound live like they do on the album," and they're blowing up, and they're super popular, and just how you give it. I will say it's kind of depressing, but what I've seen throughout my career is luck and who you know a lot more than talent. That's just my personal experience. It's a lot of who are you rubbing elbows with, producers wise, or who just literally has a ton of money and saw you and goes, "Man, I want you at my next festival. I dig you." Like it's kind of random. There is talent in some of it, but I'm saying like I would say at least 50% of it that I've seen have been not someone that maybe didn't work as hard that was waiting in line that just got thrown into the mix. Have you ever experienced that?
Yeah, I think there are some people who are coasting on relationships, but I think that's true in everything. I mean, you look at some of
Yeah,
these, look at the Tarantino movies. He's got the same 6 people in almost every one of his movies, and
yeah.
that's okay if you've got a crew of people that you can get along with and that resonate and can perform. But yeah, I think there are a lot of bands. I am wholeheartedly anti backing tracks. I think if you
Mhm.
can't do it with an acoustic guitar and a bottle of whiskey, you can't do it.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, and I always thought that was great. This is why I consider Led Zeppelin the greatest band of all time, because a band that puts this bombastic music, like In My Time of Dying or Kashmir or A Whole Lot of Love, in the middle of their show back in the '70s, in the middle of their show, they stopped everything, pulled out stools, 3 stools, and sat down with acoustic guitars and played for 25 minutes. And they did just acoustic, like folksy stuff, the Going to Californias and the Black Country Women's and stuff, and then went back and did it. Like, to me, I don't understand why people have a problem with bands. Like, I love AC/DC. Obviously, their AC/DC is AC/DC. And I love the Ramones and I love Motorhead, and they do what they do very well. But when
Yeah.
a band deviates from something, like Led Zeppelin did everything, and the Beatles did everything first. Like, the Beatles did metal, the Beatles did punk. Sergeant Pepper is a rap. That's a hip hop song.
I didn't think about that like
It
that.
was 20 years ago today. Sergeant Pepper taught the band to play.
Oh,
That's a hip hop song. If Ludacris does that, it's a rap song. But because
you're
Paul
right.
McCartney, a white Englishman, did it, and America wasn't ready for that. I mean, we just celebrated Elvis Presley's birthday. He's not the king of rock. Chuck Berry was the king of rock. Little Richard was the king of rock. Bill Haley and there were so many other people. I mean, Elvis Presley was a pop star. He didn't write any songs. Not one song did Elvis Presley write. He was
I feel like
completely
people are more
fabricated.
fascinated by Elvis Presley because of his drug abuse and his personal issues more
He's
than
a
his
pedophile.
music. I mean, yeah, he was a drug abuser that wasn't a good parent, and I think he's been glorified, more. But the sex symbol thing too, though. We really
Yes,
are
that's
a
what it
look
is.
society.
He was
So,
he was marketed. He was the first person that was marketed. And by the way, when he's doing gospel music or he's doing like blues and gospel stuff, like Elvis was great. But the other stuff is just so cheesy, so goofy. But the point being, when a band or an artist deviates from what your expectation of them is, like I thought it was interesting. I hate Garth Brooks. I'm not a fan of country music. I like if I like country, I like bluegrass. Like I like Chet
oh,
Atkins
I like
and
Jelly
stuff like
Roll and like some fun rock country, but I'm not a big country fan. It's just not my
No,
thing.
I wish Jelly the best. He's a super nice guy, and nobody has worked harder to get where he's getting. Nobody should begrudge him, but I would never buy a Jelly Roll record. It's just not for me. It's not for me. But there are
Yeah.
tens of millions of other people for whom it is. And so I'm in the minority and I'm okay with that. But when a band would deviate from what you expect them to do, that's beautiful. That's being more well rounded. And I think you see a lot of these bands, like, and I don't want to name anybody, but there's certain bands that it's just punch you in the face all the time, every song. Take a breath. Take a breath and let the song breathe a little bit. And the industry now is doing what I used to call Creed of the Week, which is whatever the band is, whatever that sound is, give me more of that. At least in those bands in the '80s, when the hair bands were doing their things, you could tell the difference between Rat, Bon Jovi, Warrant, LA Guns, you know what I mean? Wasp. Like they all had a different sound. They were still in the same
Mm.
genre, but they didn't sound the same. But to me, there are a dozen bands right now that if I put them on and just played the musical part of the song, you couldn't tell me who it is.
I get that. So, and I'm a divorced dad rock. That's kind of been my jam on the podcast. And I will say, I won't name them again, but there's a lot of divorced dad rock category, even from the 90s and now, that have that same riff of like, she left me, I'm all upset, now I'm gonna yell, and then it's back to some like rhythm guitar, and it's like this. Okay, it does well, I get it, it's written form of this will probably be a hit, but how diversified can you be, and like, well, another reason why I like Weird Al all the time is he can do every artist and switch it up, and it's never and originals, and it's just he has a huge catalog of what he can do. He's not pigeonholed in one area. I was gonna say too, I forgot, we have had Nerd Halen on this new podcast like twice now, and I know you're a buddy with Caleb, and I saw a poor guy lost his house in the fires, and I'm sorry to everyone that's, Pacific Palisades and the SoCal fires that it's happened. Have you got to talk to him or get updated
Yeah, we've
by
been
him?
texting for the past couple of days. I
Is he
offered him a beer.
okay?
He's,
Oh,
I mean, understandably upset. For those that don't know, the Pacific Palisades area of Los Angeles is some of the richest soil on Earth. I mean, it's where the richest, the wealthiest of Americans live there. That's where the
yeah.
Hollywood elite live.
I
It's a
lived there for a year
beautiful,
and a half, and
it's
I banged a lot of people, in that apartment, so it was really
in that
good.
in the same apartment place where Caleb lives.
So no, 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 Pacific Palisades on Kashmir, it was, like, right across from, oh gosh, I'm like, I think it was Blue Moon. It was something Moon. It was where Mel Gibson got pulled over for his rant. My apartment was up the street. I mean, and this is 2008 to 2009. And I had like Black Veil Brides living with me there. I had Ron Jeremy there over there all the time. And I just have the best memories there. I turn on the TV and it's just burning down. And I'm like, whoa, I almost don't even believe it, to be honest, where I'm at right now. Like, I think I need to be in person in LA to drive through to believe it. But yeah, people don't understand, like, in between Hollywood and Malibu is Pacific Palisades, and it is a beautiful was hidden gem area that is a little bit more affordable than Malibu, but you can just take Sunset all the way up to Hollywood. You don't have to get on the stupid, 4 or 5 or 1 or be stuck in traffic, and I feel so bad for him. Like, him and a lot of people have lost their houses on my stories on Instagram right now, and, I know everyone's reposting where you can donate and how you can help, and I saw the band had a GoFundMe for him, so that's good. But is he
Yeah,
saying he's at another location now, though,
he's got
right?
a they have a place to live. He's got a wife and kids and a dog. He said he took about half a dozen guitars and his stuff and just got out. And then wherever he was staying, he had turned on the news and saw his house burning on the news. There was like a reporter standing in front of the apartment building or the condo building where he lived while
Oh
it was
my
on fire.
gosh.
So he witnessed it, and the whole world witnessed it on live television. His
That's
house burning down.
insane.
Yeah, it sucks. And I've got another friend who's got a house in Topanga, who just moved into it about a month ago. And the house he's dating the daughter of a fairly famous musician. They've been together for many years, and this famous musician helped front. He has a house, I think, in either in Laurel Canyon or Sherman Oaks or whatever it is. He's had that house that he's been in for 30 years. He and his girlfriend are moving in together. So her father fronted them some money to buy their dream house in Topanga. They moved in like a month ago in the past three
Wow.
days. And in the past 3 days, we've been texting back and forth. He's waiting for his evacuation order. They're afraid that they might lose this house, this amazing house that they've waited their whole life for, that his soon to be father in law, fronted them the money for. And he has to sell his other house. The good news is, if they do get an evacuation order and he's got to move to his other old house, at least they have a place to go. So many people don't. They're talking about, I heard somewhere in the area of over 100,000 people, 200,000 people displaced. Like, that's
Yeah.
a ridiculous, that's a city. That's
It's
an
no,
entire,
it's insane. There's 5 different fires right now in the mountain. It's 27,000 acres last night when I, last caught up. Like, it's an insane amount
yeah.
in Hollywood and in Pacific Palisades all over. And then, I was just watching Tommy Lee's wife, Brittany. She's posting all the conspiracy theories, and I don't jump on board to those at all, but I do like to watch everything and what everybody's saying. But
That's how
no,
I feel
not
about conspiracy theorists. Knock it
really.
off.
Okay, well, I'm curious though about how random it is that how this is so crazy, and then the insurance companies dropped 3 months ago, and no one could get water, and it's tragedies happen all the time, and things just pop up and happen. But the large scale of this is mind blowing. Like, how did this start? I can't wait to figure out if we do get answers, how it started, how we can fix this in the future because I have no clue
You
how
can't.
this yeah,
You
it's
can't.
just gonna happen with the
You
wind and the
can't.
right.
If I mean, you just can't. I mean, it's interesting because I have some friends that do morning radio in Albany, New York, and they had posted, "What's wrong with California? Why, they know this is going to be a problem. Why don't they budget for it?" What they don't know is that California is home to 40 million people, and that no matter how much budgeting you do, there's never enough. And I challenge you to find a city in America that can handle four, because at the time, at the peak, it was four. We've had one or two will pick up here and there, but they're nailing those ones good. Now that the winds have died down, they can actually put some helicopters in the air and bomb those things and smother the fires. But there's no city in America that could have four fires that is dealing with hundreds of thousands of acres of burning land at the same time and have enough resources to make it work. It just doesn't work. You can't do
California
that.
is more like a country than a state, with
It's 17 countries in Europe. If you go down
yeah.
the West Coast, I mean, it's unbelievable. And so people that don't live here don't have a concept of what it is. Is budgeting a problem? Absolutely. Is the infrastructure a problem? Yeah, it's ancient. We don't pay attention to it. You don't, like, for example, the house that you live in right now. What do the pipes look like underneath the house right now? Do you know?
Well, this is a new build, but my last house was 22 years old, and so that's kinda why I wanted to sell it, is there was foundation issues starting, and who knows what was gonna bust, and so they just built these houses a couple years ago, and also people are saying, "Oh, it's not gonna be as good because the materials are worse," now, but I was concerned about foundation issues because my last house, I loved it, but it started sinking and cracking in more areas than I'd like. But I mean, yeah, there's problems everywhere you live, right? So I lived in Texas, I've lived in Montana, and you're going to have issues everywhere. But we are such a large mass scale state that to take care of everybody and cure everything is impossible. I do feel bad. There was a lot of people that didn't have insurance or their, claims got denied. And now, my gosh, if I lost my house, that's it. That's like my livelihood. That
No,
would
it's
be,
your everything. It's your
it
nest
is.
egg. It's the most important. It's the most important expenditure that you'll make in your life.
Yeah.
And these people, and look, if an insurance company chose not, I don't even know why we're into this, but if an
I know
insurance
I
company,
always wanted to check on Caleb through you, but yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to get all California fire, but he's okay and he's fine.
no,
Okay.
no, he's going to be okay. And the GoFundMe is doing well, and he's appreciative, and he and his wife and family are doing better. His father's house is still in danger, and his father, again, to the Pacific Palisades point, his father was in the film industry, so that house has been there for a while, and it's fairly valuable. And that's their nest egg. And if you lose your house, like, imagine, like, you're going out to a bar. Imagine you go down to Ace of Spades to see some band, and then you drive up to your driveway and your house is gone. Like, what
No,
do you
that
do?
would just no. I have kids, I've got animals, you know what I mean? Like, that's my entire life and lively and just peace of mind. When you come home from work, what you wanna do? You wanna relax, I wanna get in my recliner, put my feet up, and it helps my mental state to unwind. So to not have my safe space with all of my things set up, even vacationing recently for me is kind of difficult. I just like my shit where it is, you know what I mean? I'm getting a little old and I'm like, I wanna so that's gotta be hard. And so wait, circle back, California in general, you went from Boston to Kansas, and then did you go to Arizona and make it back to California, or was there another state before you got back here?
I went to Kansas City, which is technically in Missouri, but it's the state line runs through Kansas and Missouri. Went to Kansas City for 5 years. Got gassed in Kansas City. Again, 5 years is a long time in radio years. And then I got gassed. Did a couple of different things. Did some. I drove to Topeka to sit in a studio not unlike the one I'm in right now for a company that owned radio stations in Palm Springs. So I was on a radio station in Palm Springs on a news talk station after Sean Hannity for a while. That was kind of fun.
That's
Um,
different.
because Hannity would be bad mouthing the president, and then I would come on immediately afterwards and go, "Summer school is bullshit." You
And
know?
just like you would take it in a whole nother direction?
Yes, absolutely. I took it. I
Oh
just,
my gosh.
because people, I did an entire show on Arizona when Arizona did their SB 1070 thing, which was their racist policy of just stop and frisk Mexican people, because
Yeah.
trust me, they're not stopping the fair skinned, redheaded, freckle faced Irishman who's walking down the street. They're stopping the people dressed in a plaid shirt buttoned up to here and the low rise. You know what I'm talking about? Driving a Chevy
Yeah, the
Impala.
cholo, lean like a cholo.
Yeah,
I don't know, I love, like, how influenced and melting pot we are in the United States, especially California, though, because we have the best food and we have the hardest workers. Why anyone wouldn't wanna let every Hispanic person in? They do all the jobs the best, better than us, better than anybody I know, so I don't get it.
I, I try to I stay away from politics the
Yeah,
best I can, but I was on a talk station because I needed to pay my rent. So
100%.
I did talk radio for a while, and then the opportunity to program a legendary rock station in Phoenix came up, and everybody told me don't go there because it was owned by a dysfunctional company at the time. They said don't go there, and I said I've been out of work for 10 months. I need a job. I got to go. So I programmed this radio station in Phoenix for a few years. A company came in and bought them. I knew it was coming because anybody that involved in strategic radio cluster programming nonsense, inside radio shit, understood the dynamics of the market and that there were just too many properties fishing in the same pond. You had to make a change, and my station was the one that was billing the least and needed to be changed. So they changed it, but they didn't fire me. They put me to work on their classic rock station at night, knowing that it was a temporary thing. I had an opportunity to go to Chicago to do mornings in Chicago and passed on that because they put me in mornings in Phoenix. So I did 9 years of mornings in Phoenix. We were number one when the show ended. My partner was significantly older than me. He was 8, 9 years older. So he got to the point where he had enough FU money, and his wife
Hmm,
was retiring from her job, and he decided to hang it up. The company went in a different direction, brought in a different morning show from a different market instead of rebuilding around me. Which, by the way, in the radio industry, this is one of the things that bitter ex-radio people um, don't understand is when one person leaves a show, it's very difficult, as we were talking about earlier, to create chemistry. When you
yeah,
have a good, successful show, nobody wants to come in and you can't add people to it. Like the Three Stooges, for example, Mo, Shemp, and Larry were the original Three Stooges. Shemp leaves, Curly comes in, Curly gets sick, Shemp comes back, Shemp gets sick and leaves. Now it's Mo, Larry, and Joe. All right, Joe was okay. And then Curly Joe, like there's only so many times you can change out the parts before the luster wears off. So
yeah,
they made a change. They made a philosophical change, brought a different morning show in. And they moved me to middays. I did a year in middays and worked out my contract. But this company had reached out to me a couple of years ago to come and do mornings. But I told them I was under contract. I can't talk to you. I appreciate it. But when my contract is up, maybe we can have another conversation. Contract was up. Phone calls were made. Some introductions were made. We did a couple of Zoom meetings like this, and they
yeah.
offered me the chance. And to come back to 98 Rock, I never wanted to leave 98 Rock. It's a great radio station in a great city, in a great state, with great people and a great company. Why would I want to leave this? So when the opportunity came around, I said, hell yeah, I want to do it. Talked to my girlfriend and I said, do you want to go to Northern California? And she said, why not? Let's do it. So
That's
we did.
great that she supported you and moved with you, and I love you. Welcome back to 98 Rock. I like
Thanks.
listening to you in the morning, so it's
I
exciting.
appreciate
Even
that.
the kids, they're like, "Oh my gosh," and I go, "Mommy got to meet him at Aftershock." They're like, "What? That's so cool." I like that they think it's really cute, and so I
It's
gotta
super
call
kind
in
of you to say
more.
that.
Yeah, and you know what I love? That you could text now. That's really neat,
Yeah,
and
it's
you
the same
actually
phone
read
line.
them.
Yeah. Why
That's
wouldn't
just
I?
like, wow. Well, I don't know. I just thought, oh, they're saying they have a text hotline and you're busy and you're doing a lot, but you actually read them and all of them. And like, I just feel like it's such a easier, faster way to connect with the audience. So I like that that's an option.
People don't, a lot of people now in 2025 don't have time to make phone calls. They just
Yeah.
don't, and especially in the morning. In the morning, and this is the dumbest thing ever. This is why people don't understand the stupidity of this industry. And research shows that there are three reasons that people listen to the radio in the morning: time, temperature, traffic. That's
Hmm.
it. How much time before I have to be at work? What do I have to wear? How long is it going to take me to get there? That's the serviceable part of what radio provides in the morning and the afternoon. So in the morning, you're in your shower, you're listening, whatever it is. You get out, you brush your teeth and stuff. You got the radio on, but then you get in your car and you're heading to work. Maybe you have the radio on, and then you get to work and you go to do your thing. You don't have time to sort of shoot the shit, but you can text and then send it. And then while you're driving, and it's funny how many people text me at like 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and I get around to responding to their text and I get the automated, I'm driving right now. I cannot take the phone. Like they put the do not disturb on their text line. So
Yeah.
I get it. It's a different animal in the morning. We have a great afternoon guy named Abe Cannon. Abe does a way more aggressive show in the afternoon because you can be. The state of mind
You two
is,
have very different shows. You know what
yeah,
I mean? I wouldn't even compare the shows. And you're right. Like what I'm looking for in the morning is a little bit more funny conversation, maybe current events or what's going on. And then in the afternoon, I want more music or jokes or something silly. My brain's a little bit, I've had enough coffee. So it's two different aspects. I've only done morning shows though. I've never done afternoon or night. I'm just more of a morning person. So I wouldn't even know where to begin on like a midday or late night. I feel like I'd fall asleep. I don't
it's
know.
it's you know what? It's all the same. It's what you make of it. You don't know it. What you probably like. I don't have any lights on in the studio right now. All the lights
No
that you
way.
see, all the lights that you see. Yeah, I mean, there's no lights on. I mean,
It's
all
so
the lights.
bright.
It's all these monitors.
Oh,
I have a bunch of monitors that light up the room. So
okay.
I have no need. Oh shit, I fucked it up now. Oh well,
We need to see
whatever.
if you're wearing pants. You got to put it down to your pant. No, I'm just kidding. Are you pantsless this morning? Okay, you got pants on. Well, dude, thank you, Paul. So I asked you to come by for 20 minutes, but I love talking to you so much that I stole you for 45 minutes. But thank you so much for coming by Steph's Rock Show. And I definitely am going to keep listening to you, Paul Marshall, in the mornings. Is
Thank
there
you.
any announcements you have or that you want to make?
No, I mean we're in the spirit of self promotion. We're going to give away Metallica tickets next week for the shows that they're playing down there. They've announced this morning that they're putting single show tickets on sale. So I'll have tickets to give away next week. And I just appreciate people giving us the time. This radio station's been around for 40 years. And they've gone through some changes over the past couple of years, and turned off a lot of people because some of the people that have worked here were less than pleasant to the audience. They didn't show the audience the kind of respect, and you can't do that. Like in the 90s, you could make jokes like that. You could sort of be a little bit more abrasive, but the real world is already abrasive enough. The last thing you want to do is turn on your radio station and get pissed off. Like it's
Yeah.
not funny anymore. It's just exhausting.
We need
Um,
more hugs and more love to the listeners and to the world. I think the world is such a disaster, a little bit of a shitstorm. So if we could like when you want to check out and watch either a podcast or listen to radio or get onto a reality TV show, I think we want more positivity and upbeats and to feel welcomed than to feel like we're being teased or made fun of or just have negativity. That's no
yeah,
bueno.
it's comfort food, and the
Mhm.
aura of aggression. You can be sarcastic, you can be acerbic, you can be aggro without being an asshole. There's a
Yeah.
difference between being punk and being a punk. And I think that a lot of people lost that script somewhere along the line. And some radio stations have lost their way and their direction, and that's why many of them have gone away. Some of the formats have gone away. I think it's incumbent upon everybody that does this. This is entertainment, and nobody wants to be aggravated. Like if I want to sign up to be aggravated, go see a dominatrix or something.
I wanna
Do you know
be
what
a
I mean?
dominatrix. Yeah, no, I wanna whip guys. No, sorry, that's from my head, but, yeah, no, if I wanna be pissed off, I'll watch, like, Love After Lockup. It's my guilty pleasure show of, like, people sending money to people that are locked up that think they're in love with them, something like that, but if I listen to the morning radio, I wanna be like, "Oh, I'm excited, I'm happy." They're sharing a little bit of their personal life and then a lot about what's going on just in general in your area, so,
The
I'm glad it's working out well.
most people are on the way to the shittiest part of their day. Not many people, and it's just by my mother was a bartender, waitress. My father was an auto mechanic. My father had a ninth grade education. My mother dropped out of school in 10th grade. They busted their asses. They worked their asses off to put a roof over my head. But I never saw either of them ever wake up. Nobody wakes up when they're 14 or 15 years old and says, I look forward to being the district manager at a Walgreens. There's nothing
Yeah.
wrong with that job. I'm not shitting on it. What I'm saying is, and I'll use a better example, I was out with a program director that I worked with at a radio station, and we were at a Kentucky Fried Chicken. And it's lunchtime, and it was taking a little bit longer than it should take to get the food in a fast food place. It was taking a long time. And people were getting aggravated, myself included. And I turned and looked at the woman across the counter who's in the back in the kitchen. And she was in her late 30s, maybe 40s. I don't know, maybe has a husband or a partner at home with a couple of kids and stuff. And she got up at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock this morning, maybe sent her kids off to school, put that apron on, put that hat on, and got behind the counter to cook greasy chicken for 8 hours a day for, I don't know, $9, $10 an hour at the time. And that's as good as it gets for her.
I know,
every
that's
day.
hard. So you wanna be gentle with people, especially in the
Right.
service industry. I've been a waitress and bartender for years on and off, and people being so upset and mad at me, and a lot of times it actually is the kitchen or something else too. It has nothing to do with me as the server, but I think everyone should work in the service industry or have a family member that grew up that worked in it so they understand like, "Hey, we're trying. Everybody's trying. Let's not get so upset." And like the things we complain about are ridiculous. Like life is very short. We should just enjoy it, love it. I don't know. I'm the opposite though. They'll like if you mess up my order, I won't even say anything. I won't even send it back. I'll just eat it. I'm like that.
Well, it's because
I don't
you've seen
know.
waiting. You've seen
Yeah.
waiting, and you know what can happen. Don't
It's
piss
gonna
off the
mess up the
person.
whole day or like, make everything late. And so I'm like, you know what? And I'm just not picky too. I'll just eat whatever. Like
We
guys, girls,
trust.
food.
We
What?
trust. We trust with blind trust everyone
Yeah.
around us that things are going to
Yeah.
be cool. Like we've all agreed that we're going to live in a society. Like when you drive home today, or when you drive out today, and you're out on the road, thousands of cars around you, nothing stopping them from turning in to the other lane and fucking you up. We have
Yeah,
all
that's a good
agreed.
point.
We've all agreed that this is the system, that this is the environment that we're going to live in a civilized society. And most people on the way to work, they're just sitting there. If I can
Almost
get that person,
robots.
if I can get that person to just go, I win. That's all we want to do.
Yeah. A
Every
little
court needs a
chuckle, a
jester.
smile. Yeah, that's when people listen to me, I hope like when okay, so say I'm dating someone and I meet their mom and recently it's happened, they've checked out my page. I want them to understand that my goal is to make them laugh. My goal is to be maybe a wilder version of myself too, because I hope somebody smiles or goes, "That's ridiculous." Now, is it kind of me? Yeah, it is. I'm a little crazy, but I want to entertain, and I don't know if everybody understands that that hasn't done radio or a personality of like, okay, how can I want to make someone smile or laugh. Like that makes my day if that happens.
Outside of David Lee Roth, you can't live the gimmick 24/7. And
Mm,
when David Lee Roth lives the gimmick 24/7, A, it's embarrassing because he's fucking 70 now. And B, it's just exhausting. It's
yeah.
exhausting to keep up the facade. It's exhausting to pretend. It's exhausting to not be able to take a breath, or to like, I can't imagine what it's like to be someone famous. Like, I can't imagine
Yeah.
what it's like to be someone in Pacific Palisades. And the good news is, and this part of the reason why all those actors and musicians tend to live in the same neighborhood is so they all know what each other does. And so they're not phased by it. And so they're not bothered. They've all agreed to live in this little enclave of protection. You were mentioning the Palisades is this hidden gem. Of course, not
Yeah.
anymore. Not anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody knows what the Palisades is. So
Yeah.
now what are you going to do?
And it's
So
burnt down. That's just crazy. I
I
just
just want to
can't.
have a good time. I don't have many years left. I don't know how many there are, but none of them are a given. So I don't have many years left. I'm halfway through. If I have another 40 or 50 years left in my life, I don't want to spend them being angry or miserable, and I don't want them spend them being angered or spoken to like an idiot.
Yeah.
I just want to have life is too short and too enjoyable. Like you look outside the window right now here in Northern California, I can see snow on top of the Sierra. I can see sunshine outside my window. I can see kids playing. Like life is good. Don't
It's
make it bad.
beautiful.
Don't make it bad. And that's what this radio station, and I think a lot of radio stations did for a while. That whole, I have to be more aggro than the next guy. I'm so metal. I'm so metal, and you don't even know how metal I am. Who cares? When you saw Lemmy in Bermuda shorts and Converse high tops, he wasn't wearing his bullet belt. He wasn't wearing his jacket. He was just wearing
Yeah.
a Hawaiian shirt and cut off shoes and sneakers. Like you can't be Lemmy 24/7. You just can't.
Totally. I wear to a concert and when I go grocery shopping, I look homeless. I'm not trying to, be leather and studs and crazy all the time, but it's fun. It's fun to do a little bit of both, to have your fun persona and go out. By the way, heads up, Head PE and Samora play at Goldfield Thursday night, downtown Sacramento. I'll be hosting that show January 16th. So if you guys don't have your tickets, get that. But I was saying, so like that, I'll get dressed up, right? I'll get full glam and I'll get nuts in my tall boots. But normally I'm at home with the kids with green tea on the couch, like being super boring in sweatpants. Like I think it's funny. People are like, "Oh, you just live a wild lifestyle." I'm like, no, most of the time I'm in bed at 8 p.m. like with my dog. So, and yeah, you're right. I don't hold anger for anything. I don't hold grudges. I wish everybody well. And I think that's going to make you a healthier, better version of yourself. If you're just like, dude, I hope you do right. Like I'm
The,
not,
the target of ridicule, the target of criticism, the target of your aggression Anger's an energy, and it's a good energy to have when properly focused, but the target has to be deserving. You don't win by punching down. You just don't. You don't, there's no win there. Like, you ask yourself, why are you doing this? Why are you holding a grudge? Why are you bad mouthing? Why are you like, what, in what world did you think it was a good idea that people chose your radio station, chose them because they like you, they call you, you put them on the air, and you get abused? Like, unless you're in on the bit, then it's, but most people, and by the way, people hearing that think, what a jerk. Why is
Yeah.
he treating these people this way? Like, have a little bit of, you can be sarcastic and goofy. You can do, I mean, look at Don Rickles, the old comedian Don Rickles. Go look at some stuff on YouTube and watch how brutal he was, but you always knew that there was a wink there. And I think that radio lost the wink. Radio
Alright.
forgot that this is an act. Radios, people start to smoke their own stash and think that they are the character that they play on the radio. They think that they are tough
Oh.
guy, you know what I mean? And they realize
Mhm.
when the lights go out and you're sitting there staring yourself in the mirror, you ask yourself if you're a good person and if everything you did today was as good as it can be. And sometimes, and most of the time, it's not. And you try to do better, but you shouldn't deliberately berate people and deliberately treat people like shit. It's just, I don't think there's a win there. I think it's exhausting.
I agree. I totally agree. Well, geez, Paul, thank you for freaking giving me a whole hour of your time. Unfortunately, you kept your pants on the whole time, but you are welcome back on Stefs Rock
Well,
Show podcast anytime.
I kept my pants on for the kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
I
hey,
find that if you say for the kids after something, it makes everything okay.
then it's okay. All right.
Like, if you and I decided to engage in a co-ed nude leapfrog tournament for the kids, it'd be okay.
Yeah. Oh my God, for the kid. Well, I think it'd be good ratings for the podcast if we did nude leapfrog. So we should think about this for the future. Maybe the next time you come on the podcast
For the kids.
for the kids.